Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Badimosi. Now, it seems all might not be well with the ruling All Progressives Congress APC, and nothing else confirms that more than what the governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, said on a recent television program. Now, Governor El-Rufai alleged that some persons in the presidency may be working assiduously to ensure the party's failure in the February 25th general elections. According to him, those working against the party's candidate, Bola Tinubu's victory, were people whose candidates were defeated during the party's presidential primary election. He also said the same forces were responsible for the current crisis created by the petrol subsidy, petrol scarcity, I should say, and the redesigned Naira notes policy, which is causing serious chaos across the country. He described the implementation of the Naira policy now as ill-timed. But in a swift reaction, the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, speaking on behalf of the federal government, denied that any element within the presidency was working against the ruling party, insisting that President Muhammadu Buhari is committed to ensuring that the forthcoming elections are free, fair, and credible and will not favor any presidential candidate. Well, joining me now to discuss this issue further is Nelson Ekujimi, who is a political affairs analyst. Nelson, thank you very much for joining us on the program. After listening to the governor of Kaduna State, what exactly did you think?
Well, thank you very much. After listening to the governor of Kaduna State, I became very worried because as a governor, I'm aware that he must have been privy to a lot of information. This information must have, motivated him to have come to the public glare. You expect that, he should have explored the internal mechanism to ventilate these observations. But for him to have come out to the public glare means clearly that, the man must have been frustrated with every attempt, to rectify, these anomalies internally. And for me, he has spoken the minds of millions of Nigerians.
Yeah, from what you were seeing now, do you get that impression too, from your own position? Do you get the impression that the presidency, or some elements, as the governor put it now, some elements within the presidency might be working against the interest of the ruling party and of course, the candidate of the ruling party?
Well, I don't know where these saboteurs or enemies working against the interests of the ruling party's presidential candidates, aspirations are domiciled. But don't forget, I was in Abeokuta a week ago for the presidential campaign rally of the APC. And I listened to the presidential candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, made allusion to this issue that some persons are just determined to ensure that they frustrate the love Nigerians have for him and his party by this self-contrived crisis. And if Governor El-Rufai is coming out to make these allusions, it's a reconfirmation of what Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu said at the campaign rally in Abeokuta MK Abiola Stadium, of which I was personally present and I heard and listened to him very clearly. So the impression that is on ground now, almost everywhere, is very rife, that look, there are some forces working behind the scenes, to subvert the candidature of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But where they are domiciled is what a lot of us don't know. But a lot of people right now are in tune, they are in tandem with the statement by Malam Nasir El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, that look, maybe they are even in the presidency. We are yet to place our fingers on where these persons are domiciled. But with the situation on ground that these things are artificial, it is not out of place, to continue to have assumptions, innuendos, and speculations surrounding the fact that, look, there must be some people who are out, to achieve a sinister agenda. But, like we have always, like most Nigerians are now determined that if this is the plan, the Nigerian people also will become resolute, to ensure that our will, at the end of the day, stands on, on tinkered.
Now, does the president, you look at the president, do you think, does it give off that impression at all that he's not fully in support of the candidate? Because we've also heard some people say that there's been insinuations and innuendos here and there. Even the PDP had insinuated that at some point, that that when you look at the body language of the president, you look at the fact that he's not been to all the campaign rallies now with the presidential candidate of his party. Do you see that? Do you get the impression that the president might be giving up that impression that he's not fully in support of the party's presidential candidate, and so some individuals within the party, could be within the presidency too, are taking advantage of that to probably rock the boat now for the candidate?
I don't see from my own personal, observation, I don't see the president as a person or as the president as the leader of the party who is not, in tune with the candidate of the party. I see him as somebody who, even before the primaries, when there were all these, rumors here and there that the president has anointed the candidate, the president, at every forum that he had opportunity to address, made it very clear that he had no candidate, that his candidate is whoever emerges as the party candidate. And the president has demonstrated it repeatedly. But, the president being a military man, and, for those of us who are keen political observers, we are very much conscious of the fact that this is a president who rarely talks. He's a taciturn human being. The president believes more in action. So the action that we're seeing today is like, people are capitalizing on his taciturnity to say, oh, the president is not in support of the presidential candidate of his party. Don't forget, at the launch or the inaugural campaign rally of the party, Mr. President was physically present. And we can only, as, citizens, urge Mr. President to demonstrate, not only by, not talking, but by coming out clearly to, make the whole world aware that, look, this is the candidate of my party and I'm solely behind him. These things that are happening, I'm conscious of it and I'm making every effort within my powers as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to correct this anomaly. If anybody thinks I don't support this candidate, then that person must be living in dreamland, because I became a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria through the same vehicle, and it behoves on me as a responsible and sensitive person, as a loyal party man, as a leader of the party, to ensure that no matter what, in as much as I'm going to provide the level playing field, because I'm the president of Nigeria, not president of my party, but everybody should be rest assured that, my support will be for the candidate of my party in person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But as we speak, the message, the body language of the president is giving to a lot of Nigerians is that, maybe is indifferent. But I, as an observer, I know very well Mr. President is somebody who is very much conscious of the privilege, the grace that the party has given him to be on the saddle. And I'm sure he will not want to do anything that will portray him in bad light in that direction.
Well, I'm happy you said you were at the APC rally at Abeokuta when the presidential candidate came there to campaign. And of course, you heard some of what the presidential candidate, that's Bola Tinubu, now said, especially on the issue of petrol scarcity, and of course the redesigned Naira. You know the chaos that this new Naira notes is causing across the country, serious chaos, and then we're also dealing with petrol scarcity. So people are queuing up at petrol stations, difficult now to get petrol, despite the fact that subsidy is still in place. People are queuing up at ATM machines, banks now to get the new Naira. So things are really difficult. And the truth is that you look at it, I mean, these are policies of the current government, and this government is taking part in the next election. So some people have said, look, if the government was not working against its candidate, he wouldn't be, putting forward such difficult policies, because as we speak today, tempers are high across the country. People are not happy, and that people may decide to take it out against the party. That politically speaking, this is not a smart move on the part of the presidency at all, because it doesn't support his party. So people look at that, and Governor El-Rufai did allude to that the Naira policy, according to him, is ill-timed, and it's a confirmation that some people within the presidency might be working against the interest of of the candidate. And the candidate himself did say, at least alluded, he did allude to that when he spoke at that rally in Abeokuta. So you look at all of this, you look at the chaos caused by the new Naira note, you look at the chaos we see at petrol stations and all of that. When you piece all of these things now together, do you get the impression that somehow it just might be true that some people within and quite powerful up there in the presidency might be working against the interest of the party's presidential candidate?
Yes, you get that impression. But if you look at the policies introspectively, you recognize that the government has taken this decision, placing national security far above political, considerations. Even though, politics and, governance go pari passu. But be that as it may, one would have expected, as germane as this policy are, as laudable as they are, that for them to have come up with this policy, there must have been, they must have thought it over, provide the necessary palliatives to ensure that the negatives of the policy does not manifest the way we are seeing today. Yes, I agree that the extension in the land, as I speak to you, I even said it on the national TV, that I'm yet to touch the 200 naira, the redesigned 200 naira notes. As much as I do the transactions on a daily basis, as a parent, whether I'm buying something for my children when I'm taking them to school or sending money to my children, you expect me to have handled all this money. You look at the queues at the petrol stations. Yes, it seems as if some people have contrived this problem, to scuttle, the presidential ambition, the presidential chances of the candidate of the ruling party. Yes, these are very true. But looking at it deeply again, you recognize that it seems there were some information or some intelligence that has necessitated this action at this time, which, if you look at it politically, it is not appropriate. But because national interests at every point in time, like we have always admonished, even our political gladiators, that national interest should supersede political considerations. You don't say because you want to aspire for a political office, then you imperil, the sovereignty of Nigeria. And for me, this is my own thinking. As much as the policy is causing so much discomfort, is causing so much anger, one only hopes that the authorities will immediately do the needful in order to kill these insinuations, these assumptions, these innuendos that are becoming very rife. It is true for anybody to look at it on the surface and say, oh, these things are political. Yes, because you look at the fuel crisis, for example. This is an issue we saw before now, and we have always had it before with us. How come it is becoming intractable? How come we are behaving as if we can't get around it? Who are those that we have identified as being responsible for where we are in this issue of fuel? And the issue of a redesigned Naira, let me tell you for free, as a public policy analyst, I have interacted with a lot of persons in the system. And I must say it here with every sense of responsibility. I lay all the blame on the central bank. I just spoke to persons within the banking industry, and the information they are giving to us, one-on-one, heart to heart, is that, look, in the last 1 week, we have not been able to load our ATM machine. And when we load our ATM machines and people come there to collect cash, we impose charges. These are charges that we use to, keep the bank system running. We make profit from charges. But how will it profit us if people are not making withdrawals from the ATM? So how will we be able to make charges? So the information out there is that the central bank has not given to the commercial banks, because if you go around, I live in Lagos, if you go around the metropolis, the crowd that I see at the ATM, let me confess to you, I'm too scared to approach any ATM. I dare not. I have even seen videos of people fighting one another to be able to access the ATM. I won't do such. I will try as much as possible to limit my transactional activities. But how many people can do that? You want to buy water on the road, You want to provide foodstuffs in the home. The average woman there in the market will not take transfer except for some few. So if you are unable to make transfer transaction, then you are in trouble. Economic activities, gradually is coming to a halt. So I think as good as this policy would have been, the implementation, notwithstanding the fact that we are in a political season, is totally faulty. The implementation is why Nigeria. This is not the first time we are having redesigned Naira for crying out loud.
And
so why are we like this?
It's a big problem. In fact,
absolutely.
I know my mom even called me earlier today, from my village. You can imagine. So for those of us in Lagos here, you can imagine if we are experiencing this problem, then imagine what the situation would be for our parents who are in their villages now. And I got a call from my mom telling me, it's been difficult for her to have access to any note at all, and she wants to go to market. I mean, they don't do transfers there. You're going to market to buy things, especially in the village. You use cash, and she's not been able to access cash to just go and buy food stuff, So it's been quite challenging. Now, do you think, from what you have seen, if this is not resolved very quickly, do you think it might affect the coming elections? Because the elections are just, well, I should say a few days down the line. I don't want to use weeks now.
Absolutely. If INEC does not have logistics within its confines, that it had to source it to third party, those third parties have to go and source fuel at the fuel stations. And you know what obtains there? So if INEC has had an agreement with them that, okay, we are charging 10,000 per vehicle, you can be sure on election day, those guys can say, look, we can't take 10,000 any longer. In a long way, it's going to affect the election. There's no doubt about that, except within the next maybe 72 to 96 hours, we are able to resolve the fuel crisis. Then looking at the issue of the redesigned Naira note, we also have to resolve it within the same time frame, or else the 2023 general elections will be in danger. Because, everybody knows clearly that for you to be able to move from point A to point B, even on election day, you need cash or resources. I think the electoral umpire has come out clearly to raise an alarm with regards to this. And you can be sure if this continues to linger on, even the enthusiasm of Nigerians to go to the polls will be severely decimated. So it behoves on those who are in charge of these policies to ensure that the anomalies bedeviling the policy now is quickly addressed so that we can talk to ourselves. Because like we say in Yoruba, that inududu lo moriya. It is when somebody is happy, you can tell him all sorts of funny stories. But when somebody is angry and is sad, when you tell him some stories, it could lead to violence. So it's very, very clear that if it is not quickly addressed, it will affect the 2023 general elections. There's no doubt about it. It's not rocket science.
Okay. Nelson Akujimi, I think that's where we just have to leave it. Thank you very much for coming on the program, and thank you for your insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away.